Oh, yes.
Folks, you're wondering what's happening. We have a citizen legal profession. The judge is either never late, you are merely early. Currently, we are merely early waiting for the judge.
I'm just missing my wig. All the power resides in the wig.
The top hat is nothing compared.
The top hat is a bitch. This top hat is a top bottom. I'm throwing this away. I'm going to continue to never wash this top hat. If he's not here in a minute, we'll just start. There he is.
It's a musky top hat.
You shut up, you whore. As a judge, I can say whore, right? You're a whore.
Hey everybody, really quick, you can be in here as much as you want, but no one can stand in front of any of the open doors. That is a fire code thing, alright? Cool.
Boozy loses his mind and just sets fire to the stage.
Yes. Yes!
Right? That's how I feel. Look, we all know who's in charge, and it's the top hat.
You guys promise getting it like that?
When you are ready.
Alkali, you are a pretty butterfly that has just emerged from the chrysalis.
Stop calling it a chrysalis.
All rise. The dishonorable Alkali Bismuth is now presiding.
Hammer in the morning, hammer in the evening, hammer at supper time.
That's not how the thing is supposed to go.
Excuse me, the judge will declare all be rised opposite. This is going to go well, I can tell. I now call the case of I need a script. Also, I have wig in my mouth. Shut up. Yes.
That is not the worst thing you've had to
I will now.
Not even today.
I will now call the case of legal symbol 2005 Pennsylvania statewide high school mock trial competition. Nope. I will now call the case of Linda and John Gallo as exec. Nope. Look, it's sponsored by the Young Lawyers Division. Where am I reading?
You can read?
No! That's half the problem.
Close one eye and try again.
Sound it out.
I can turn it on and off.
Linda and John Coyote as executors of the estate of Cameron Coyote, deceased and individually in their own right. Ronnie, I'm not going to even try that last name, a.k.a. Right Round Ronnie, individually, and DBA, Bobs and Bees, a sole proprietorship. Am I close?
Boobs and bees.
Boobs and bees?
Damn.
That's boobs. You got the boobs and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the really messy love and the furry dog. This is the trial. I don't know what's going on, and I've been drinking for 4 hours. I take this very seriously. They call me some nonsense ferret. So let's go with whatever is traditional. Who goes first? Person who raised their hand, please take the stage. Which is a technical term. Oh my God, my cell phone's back.
Case closed.
Case closed? What?
Yes, we won.
Oh, this was amazing.
It's very simple. It's super easy. We can all go home. All right.
Bailiff, this is your job for the rest of the night. Just deal with the wig.
Your Honor, not the worst judge I've ever had. Esteemed counsel, gentle critters of the jury, Badger. Today, you're going to hear a tragic story. You're going to hear about a life cut short. You're going to hear about a quote-unquote artist who deliberately pushed a crowd to and past its breaking point. You're going to hear about a security force that expected trouble, that planned for trouble, and was overwhelmed because of the actions of the defendant. And in the end, you're going to have to decide whether to hold that person responsible for that death. Some of you may know me, many of you do not. My name is Seyir bin al-Makhreb, and my co-counsel, hey, Scuffles McCutie. We are here because the defendant, Ronnie Urbanski, knew that his lyrics were dangerous. He knew that when he told the crowd over and over again, fight to your stage, he knew, you might be familiar with that lyric, it's from his opus, Fire It Up. That's the song the lyric comes from. He knew people took that lyric literally. He knew it got people amped up. He liked it. That's why he started putting that chorus in another song, a song he didn't belong in, a song he had never sung before, a song he sung right before he sung Fire It Up, right before he amped up that crowd, right before he caused the death of my client. He amped that crowd up. And then when their emotions were overboiling, he encouraged them again and again to fight to their stage. He told them, rush forward to your stage and feel the scream. The crowd obeyed. They broke through the security personnel who were trying to keep them safe. They rushed to their stage, and in that crush of bodies, Cameron Coyote was knocked unconscious and he died. I promise you I don't normally laugh this much.
Sustained!
There are some things that are not in question here. There's no question that during Urbanski's performance of Fire It Up, that crowd rushed the stage. There's no question that Cameron was killed during that rush. There is no question that the area in front of the stage was just under 900 people when Cameron died. It was overfilled by almost 150 people. So here are the questions that you, the jury, have to answer today. The things that the judge, still not the worst judge I've been before, is going to ask you to decide once you've heard all the evidence. Was the defendant directing the crowd to rush that stage? I submit to you that he was. You will hear the lyrics of his song. You will hear how he knew that people followed his directions. You will hear how he could see that crowd pushing into and past securities. He was amping them up, getting them primed to rush to your stage. Next, you'll have to decide if his speech was likely to produce imminent lawless conduct. Again, I will ask you at the close of the evidence to say yes. Yes, it is. You will hear how he could... Sorry. Please. Defendant knew that his words had a powerful effect on people. He saw the effect he had in the crowd. He wanted that power, that rush, that control, and he knew that that crowd would rush forward. Then you have to decide if the defendant caused Cameron's death. You already know there's no question that Cameron died in that crush of bodies. The evidence you'll hear will make it plain that the defendant is directly responsible. He told the crowd to rush the stage and repeated that instruction until they did. The evidence will show that Cameron died as a direct result of that rush, a result that the defendant instigated. Finally, you will have to decide if Cameron contributed to his own death by joining the crowd rushing that stage. I submit to you that Cameron was no more responsible for his death than any of the more than 100 other people who followed defendant's instructions. He cannot be blamed in doing what Urbanski told him any more than the rest of the crowd can. That blame lays solely at the defendant's paws. We are here for only two reasons today. First, to determine who is responsible for Cameron's death, and second, to piss off that badger right there. Thank you.
Well, I've literally never done this before, so we'll see how this goes. And I don't mean this specific one, I mean I've literally never done this before, so we'll see how this goes.
I've got a good feeling about this.
Your last album hasn't been as successful. Anyway. May I please the court? Your Honor.
You may always please the court.
So I'm holding it like
Thank
this.
you.
Esteemed co-counsel, persons, animals, and mythological beasts of the jury, we are here because a family is in grief, understandable grief, as they have lost a loved one, Cameron Coyote. In their grief, they seek to blame a musician for Cameron's death. They want you to believe that my client wanted what happened to Cameron to happen. They will present evidence that Cameron was a good kid and that he was a fan of my client's. They will attempt to convince you that, but for my client's actions, their son would be alive today. They must do this because it is their burden here today to prove their case to you by a preponderance of the evidence. I urge you to listen carefully, to truly listen to what is said by the witnesses you hear from tonight. I believe that you will hear that Cameron left his seat, defying his agreement with the convention center by his ticket, and fighting past an overwhelmed security force to get closer to an artist that he had an above-average admiration for. I believe that you will find some of Cameron's actions understandable. Some of you may think to yourselves that you've done a similar thing to what Cameron did that night. I don't believe that you will be persuaded that any of Cameron's actions in leaving his seat, defying the license that his ticket represented, and pushing through the crowd of properly located individuals are things that can be traced back to lyrics from my client's songs. And if I am right, I urge you to vote that my client is not responsible. I'm sorry there weren't more jokes in there. I'll work on it. Sorry. Thank you.
Apologizing for the lack of jokes.
Seems like a real court to me.
I prefer my lawyer didn't joke around.
Nobody asked you.
I'm certain the lawyer who opened with, "I've never done this before," so
Thanks for that.
Your Honor, at this point I feel like I have to object, but I can't really tell you why.
Excuse me, I'm a judge. I know why you're objecting, and yes, I would like another beer. Thank you very much. Sustained.
Your Honor, prior to the plaintiff beginning examination of the witnesses, we would move that the plaintiff be barred from referring to Mr. Urbanski as a rapist.
I am
throughout the
sorry.
trial.
I am sorry, Your Honor. I am sorry.
You should be.
Their client is clearly a rapist. No. Kendrick Lamar is a rap artist. Tupac was a rap artist. If you squint really, really hard, Drake is a rap artist. This man is a rapist.
Your Honor, it is very obvious they're trying to draw a corollary between Mr. Urbanski's musician status and those of a criminal sex offender.
I am sorry, do we call a violinist a violiner? Do we call one who plays the cello a celler? We call them cellists. Rapist.
All right, let me make this very clear. I have actually heard the rap stylings of this client at First Square this year. Rapist is not a significant enough term to describe what I heard, so no, sustained on the badger. Do not call him a rapist. That's a pretty obvious one, maybe, or I'm wrong. I watched a YouTube video 20 minutes ago. Continue.
Your Honor, judges are always right until appeal.
I don't know if I award points, but you guys are up by 2 right now.
Your Honor, the plaintiff would proceed with its case in chief and would call Candy Coyote to the stand.
Candy Coyote. Guys, let's give it up for Candy Coyote! Bailiff, may I ask you to get a ruler to check the length of that skirt? All right, we'll deal with that later. Continue.
Your Honor, you might be badgering my witness.
Sustained.
Could you please state your name? Could you please state your name?
My name is Candy Coyote.
And are you related to a Cameron coyote?
Yes, Cameron was my cousin.
And is Cameron still with us?
No,
And does that mean Cameron has died?
Cameron has died.
Were you and Cameron close?
We were very close.
And did you share interest in music?
We did. We were both fans of that gentleman over there.
And would that be the rapper, Right Round Ronnie?
It would be, yes.
Are you familiar with the work then of Right Round Ronnie?
Oh, yeah. I was a big fan of his first album. I didn't think that the second one was really that good, and I actually thought the third one was a cash-in because the second one bombed.
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike. Unless this is a music critic, her opinion doesn't matter.
Your Honor, it goes to the weight.
There's a word I'm supposed to use here. Make this make sense.
Your Honor, this will all go to the...
Overruled, apparently. I'm just listening to your partner for anything. Make this applicable to the case, please.
Sure.
Thank you. There's a word for that.
So,
YouTube.
so the album that was a clear commercial cash-in with no actual artistic value.
At this point, you're just being a dick, which I approve of, but the court does not. You have one last question to make this applicable to the case.
Were there any songs on that album that had a particular meaning to you or Cameron?
Cameron liked all of them. I didn't like many of them, but I was actually a big fan of Fire It Up. I felt it had real bottom energy.
What the shit,
Did Cameron also like the song Fire It Up?
Cameron liked the whole album very much.
Did you have an opportunity to see the defendant in this case in concert?
Oh yeah, at Anthrocon 2017.
And when you went to Anthrocon 2017, were you with your cousin when you attended that concert?
Yeah, we went together. He was really excited because Robbie had been in town previously, but his parents said he was too young to go, and this is his first chance to see his idol in person.
So fair to say he was really excited for this concert.
Oh, I've never seen him so excited. He said that Robbie let him be free, like express a part of him that he never really got to see before.
Let's talk a little bit about how the concert was actually set up. How was the seating arranged for this concert?
Well, there were two seating areas. There was what's called festival seating at the front, which was standing room only. And then beyond that, there was rows and rows of seats elevated that were physically separated. We were in the back.
So you were up in the actual seats?
We were up in the actual seats.
Okay. And so below you would have been the festival seating?
Yeah.
Was Ronnie the first act to perform that day?
No, there was an opening act called Baby Fur.
And how was Baby Fur?
Baby Fur was pretty good, but I felt their set was kind of patty.
Sustained. We don't need to talk about Baby Fur.
I'll just walk right away from that one. If you're going to be sustaining against all of my best material.
We're going to let you do one more line of it because I understand comedy better than law.
How did you find the opening act set?
Well, I thought they were pretty good, but their set was a little padded.
Sustained with an overruled, continue with Baby Fur material.
I'm afraid it was a little dirty for me, so that's all I got.
Defense, the council has 3 points. You better catch up. I'm neutral.
When Ronnie performed, how was his set broken up?
Actually, there were 2 sets. He did one set of 9 songs and then another set of 9 songs.
How was security for this event?
Tight. There were a lot of security guards out, and in the first set especially, people were trying really hard to mosh and crowd surf and do the general sorts of rowdy things you would expect in a concert, but security was not having it. They were throwing people out right and left, and they were really on top of it.
And would anyone actually attempt to go from the amphitheater seating down to the festival seating?
Not during...
Your Honor, calls for speculation.
It calls for her to say what she saw.
No, sustain. Ask the question differently.
Did you see anyone jumping from the amphitheater seating down to the festival seating?
Not initially. Initially, everybody kind of stayed put. It wasn't until about halfway through the second set, when Ronnie really started riling people up, that people started trying to make a move for it.
So let's talk a little bit about the second set. How was the second set set up? What songs were in the second set?
Well, he started playing more songs from the new album. One in particular he started playing was Beat Your Meat.
And what, if anything, happened during Beat the Meat?
So he didn't play the song the way he does on the album. He actually started mixing in the chorus from Fire It Up and that really, really got the crowd going.
Are there any lines from the chorus of Fire It Up that were relevant or that had an impact on the crowd?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustain.
That is speculative.
Sustain.
Are there any lyrics from the song Fire It Up that had an impact on your cousin?
Objection, Your Honor. Once again, that is speculative. She called for the cousin's state of mind. She is not the decedent and could not know his state of mind.
Sustained.
Did your cousin react visibly to any of the lines that he worked in from the song Fire It Up into Beat Your Meat?
Yeah, the first time he got to the line, Fight You to the Stage, my cousin turned to me and said, Ronnie's calling you to
Objection,
the
Your Honor.
stage.
Hearsay.
Objection, Your Honor. It's not his turn.
Yeah, that's clear hearsay. We renew our objection.
Your Honor, we're not offering the words to show that that's actually what Cameron said.
Repeat the question that you just did. Maybe I missed it. Go ahead.
No, what they said was, he said, fight you to the stage.
Yeah.
We're not offering that to prove that those words were actually said. We're offering them to show the impact on the person who heard them.
Overruled.
After he said that to you, what happened then?
Well, I told him I don't think that's how it happens, but then Ronnie said the chorus again, and a lot of people jumped the fence to try to get to the festival seating. Only a few of them were caught by security. They already kind of had their hands full on the floor, and they really couldn't deal with the huge rush of people that hopped down on the stage. And Cameron just said, let's go, and he jumped, and I followed.
So at that point, were you able to get up to the festival seating, or were you grabbed by security?
Security didn't even notice us. They had their hands full with everyone else.
And so you were able to make it up to the crowd that was there for the festival seating?
I was, yes.
So after Beat Your Meat was done, what happened then?
So we started pulling our way closer and closer to the front of the stage. It was still kind of easy to move. And then he switched to Fire It Up, and things got kind of nuts then.
So during the song Fire It Up, what was the reaction of the crowd?
The crowd went nuts. They just started moshing and pushing around, and when he started saying the chorus again, and especially later in the song when he says fight you, or rush forward and hear the screams, they did. The crowd swelled up together and they got lifted off of my feet and I couldn't breathe, and I thought I was going to die, and I lost sight of my cousin, and it only was a few minutes, but it felt like forever. And then
I'm sorry. Did you eventually get sight of your cousin again?
Well, so I was lifted up. I thought I was going to die. When I didn't die, I saw a couple people fainted, but I had lost sight of my cousin at that point. And the people who fainted and then got up, and Ronnie continued the show. A little bit after the show ended, and as the crowd parted, I saw my cousin's body. He had been trampled by the crowd. He was one of the people that was fainted, and people tripped over and stomped on him, and he didn't get up.
Objection, Your Honor. Witness said she lost sight of it because she doesn't know what happened to him between the time that she lost sight of him and the time that she saw his body laying.
Witness, was there time between when you lost sight of him and when you found the body?
It was a little.
How much?
Couple
I don't know
minutes.
if I'm supposed to do that. How much?
Supposed to do that?
No, probably not. How much? He told me I could say whatever I want. Bring me tacos and tequila. How much?
Only a few minutes. He was close to the end of his set by the time he played Fire It Up.
Your Honor, on the basis that the witnesses testified she did not have sight, we would strike the testimony speculating as to the cause of death and ask the court to tell the jury to disregard.
Oh, what the shit, dude?
You should probably sustain that.
I should, but there's so many reasons that I hate people getting trampled at a concert.
We're ready for a mistrial.
Sustained! Sorry, my bad. Bring me tequila, I'll sustain faster.
After you lost sight of your cousin, you eventually saw where he was. Is that correct?
Yes, as did security at the same time. We both raced over to the body at about the same time.
And were paramedics or any sort of emergency personnel called?
Yes, immediately.
And what did they do?
Well, they took him out on the stretcher and they brought him to the hospital. He was in bad shape. He was really beaten up.
Did he ever wake up again?
No, he was in a coma, and his family decided to terminate the coma. He wasn't getting back up.
When you were at the concert, who was in control of the crowd?
Your Honor, objection calls.
Sustained. No one knows who runs this shit. You think it's Kage? No fucking way. I'm a genius. I'm a judge. I need more meat.
Your Honor, I object. I've known too many judges.
Very frank, you're actually doing better than some real judges.
I watched a 20-minute YouTube video 25 minutes ago. Do not tell me I'm doing better than real judges.
Magistrates in Pennsylvania have a 2-week course and that's it.
I am a genius judge. Continue, sorry.
When you were in the crowd, were you able to observe what was happening with the people around you?
They just kind of, like I said, they were going nuts. Every time Ronnie said something about fight to the stage or anything that like was violent or about rushing to the stage, they did it. They were really, really into him. They were playing off of every word that he said. He had them in the palm of his paws. The beans of his paws.
No further questions.
You know what? No, we're doing this properly. Guys, give a hand for the fucking council. It may be in court, but it's still a show. Everyone deserves applause.
So your name is Candy Coyote,
That's correct.
but you're a fox?
That's correct.
Nothing further.
You guys got a point. Well done, well done. You're coming back.
Would you say that your cousin Cameron liked the more violent songs from Ronnie's albums?
He liked all of them, but yeah, he did like the violent ones. I wasn't as much a fan of them myself.
And do you believe that Cameron understood the difference between violent words and lyrics and actually being violent?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
You said Cameron really liked Fire It Up.
Yeah,
So you had heard it before that show?
yeah,
Several times, would you say?
yeah, we both did.
You both knew that Ronnie's shows had a sort of reputation?
Well, but again, I thought that he knew the difference. He seemed like the kind of person who knew the difference between violent songs and violent acts.
So you saw a group of people from your area rushing down to the seating area, the general seating area from your seating area.
I did.
You saw security attempt to stop them.
I did.
You saw security had their hands full.
I did.
Specifically during Beat Your Meat, they had their hands full.
Objection, Your Honor. I should have thought of that joke.
So you knew that you were not supposed to go down on the floor. But you did it anyway, correct?
That's correct.
And even though you weren't supposed to be there, you pushed ahead during Beat Your Meat.
Objection, Your Honor. This whole line of questioning is making me feel away.
There's at least 5 people in the audience who have an erection right now. That's a 5-star event. Continue.
We knew we weren't supposed to beat our meat down on the floor, but the
Kage said this was a look into the real legal system.
I laughed. Lucy, I'm still convinced it is.
So in the afterglow of Beat Your Meat, you didn't really see what happened to Cameron.
No, I didn't.
Thank you. No more questions.
What questions?
I have no redirect, Your Honor. This witness may be excused to the Headless Lounge.
Guys, let's give it up for the witness! At this point, Judge reminds the jury, which is at this point over 100 people, he is still in need of a cold alcoholic beverage. Continue. I lost my hammer.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiffs would like to call Mr. Dorian Dorsai. No, I am not.
Dorian Dorsai, would you take the stand, please?
Between your legs.
I found my hammer.
It is called a gap.
I used this to build a house. With law.
That's not a crab house.
It's a lawful good house.
Your Honor, I'm a lawful good fairy, so I approve.
Ah, point. I lost track. Go ahead, my dear.
Thank you, Your Honor. May you please state your name for the jury?
My name is Dorian Sai. Make my apologies for not being as fluffy as the previous witness.
Few people are. Mr. Sai, can you tell me what schooling you have, what degrees you hold?
Well, I went to First State. I have a degree in security management.
And what kind of jobs do you do with that degree?
I do crowd management.
How long have you been doing crowd management?
For years now.
Years? You had a job last year. Can you tell the jury about that?
In crowd management? Yes.
Yes.
Well, I've done crowd security, crowd management, Anthrocon 2015, 2016 at Ron Ronnie's shows.
Your Honor, at this point, I would ask the witness be ruled an expert in crowd control.
Object, Your Honor. The witness has a bachelor's degree and 1 job experience. That's nowhere near enough to be an expert in crowd management.
Your Honor, he has
It's like saying
degree
a
in
truck
crowd
driver
management.
is an expert in engine mechanics. It has nothing to do with it.
Your Honor, I would say that would be like a truck driver being an expert in driving a truck.
Your Honor, if I go to Big Mac U, am I suddenly an expert in cuisine?
If you're eating a Big Mac, fuck no.
But, Your Honor,
What is your degree in one more time?
Security management.
Have you written? I would ask for a cross on the board. Who are the witness?
I'm sorry, you're asking for a what?
He's asking me to admit I'm entitled to a voir dire on the expert.
This wasn't on YouTube, I sustain on the motion that this makes any sense. Does it?
No.
But,
oh, no. This is how it's done civilly, sir. Madam, you have forgotten, madam, that I am allowed to voir dire a proposed expert unless I stipulate in advance the admission is an expert.
I did not forget that at all. I was hoping the judge forgot it.
No, hold on. That was in the video for 5 seconds. It was animated and awesome. That's all I know.
Don't worry, actually, most of the judges I actually practiced before.
I know what he's talking about now.
Mr. Sy, you stated you have a degree in security management from First State?
Yes, sir.
What type of institution is First State?
A great one.
A great one. Well, is it an accredited institution?
Accredited?
Yes.
Security management.
By who?
The people who made the school.
Is security management an associate's, bachelor's, master's, doctorate degree? What level of degree is it?
Bachelor's.
Have you performed any seminars in security management?
No, sir.
Have you written any papers in security management?
No, sir.
Have you provided expert testimony of any nature in any other case in security management?
I'm providing testimony right now.
In any other case, have you provided any testimony regarding security management?
No, sir.
Are you a recognized expert in your industry in that matter?
They recognize me.
Well, that's advantageous, isn't it? Has anybody else ever recognized you?
My boyfriend.
Who happens to be counsel. Isn't that interesting?
Your Honor, I object on the grounds that if Boozy keeps this going, he might not be my boyfriend that much longer.
So, let me get this straight. You have a bachelor's degree from First State University in security management, and you've been working in the field for 3 years. You've given no seminars, no training. You're not regarded as an expert. You've written no papers, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, for obvious reasons, we object to this witness being admitted as an expert.
This is almost definitely not how it works in case. I am submitting the witness, but I am now allowing it to be expert testimony. This is just a absurd, I don't know the word. He was there.
That's a fact witness, not an expert witness.
That is an actual, okay, that was not in the video. This is a fact witness, not an expert witness, but a very cute one. So go ahead. What? Look at this man. Adorable.
No bias whatsoever.
I'm gay. So much fun.
He's engaged. Oh.
All right, that is adorable. You have to admit that.
I have a rat necklace for my rat boyfriend.
No, just that one.
Continue with our eyewitness.
I'm not sure that I can. You're right. No, Mr. Sy. You worked for Mr. Urbanski in 2017, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that concert?
All those concerts, 2015, 2016, Anthrocon, they're pretty simple, pretty easy. We got through them just fine.
Okay. Who decided the seating arrangements at the concert?
The venue themselves.
The venue themselves. And who was in charge of the venue?
The Big and the Buzzies.
That's not the right question to ask. As the witness.
Not the worst witness I've ever had.
I'll take it.
We're drinking liquor.
Is there anything that I might show you that would refresh your recollection as the name of the venue comes?
My statement.
Oh, good. Your Honor, may I show the witness his statement?
Sure! Are you talking about his script?
Your Honor,
Yes, I am.
I will say, by the way, can I see that to make sure it's the statement?
No.
You're supposed to show it to me. Right?
Excuse me, you're supposed to apparently show it to me. Secure the area.
Your Honor, no
objection, and going forward, we'll stipulate that any witness can actually have their written statement.
That sounds wonderful.
Your Honor, good news, we've solved this. We don't have to share anymore.
Sharing is caring.
Mr. Sy, did that refresh your recollection on the venue's name?
No, I didn't. You took it away before I could read it.
That's an actual answer I've gotten before in court. Who owned that company?
I don't recall. Right, Ron Ronnie?
Yes, that's good, correct.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you, bailiff.
Oh, thank you.
Who asked for the festival seating?
The company.
Which is?
Right, Ron Ronnie.
Close enough.
No.
You get a chance later. And you agreed to the festival seating?
I did, yes. It's industry standard.
What does that mean, industry standard?
As long as people can stand it for the duration of the show, it's considered normal. Lots of shows do it.
And how much space do people have in that standing room?
For individuals or the entire space at the venue?
But for each individual person, how much space is there between
each individual person has 4 to 5 square foot personal space.
Square foot meaning around them?
Around themselves, yes.
Okay.
Centered around themselves.
All right. And you said that's industry standard?
It is, yes.
Okay. How big was the festival seating here?
The festival seating was 60 feet by 60 feet, 3,600 square foot. It fit about 750 individuals.
And how many people were in there? How many people were supposed to be in that festival seating?
750 was supposed to be in that seating, no more.
Do you know how many tickets were sold for the festival seating area?
I do not recall.
All right. I don't think it's in your statement. So
I don't think it is.
What do you do to prepare for performing security for a concert?
I researched the past venues. We were not the first show in his tour. We contacted the other venues. We asked them what level of security they did, and we prepare accordingly.
And this is what you normally do?
Yes, I do this with every show.
All right, and you did that here?
Yes.
Okay. So you reviewed Mr. Urbanski. Are you actually in Mr.? I'm sorry.
Mr. Urbanski, yeah.
Okay, cool. You actually reviewed Mr. Urbanski's music.
Appreciate that.
Yes, I did.
And you reviewed the playlist?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you think about that playlist?
Nothing.
Well, I have done shows for Ronnie in the past. It's different than his previous albums. It's a departure from the mainstream.
Okay, so let's talk about his first album. What's his first album? What was his first album like?
His first album...
What's the relevance?
Make it relevant within the next 2 questions, please.
Absolutely, Your Honor. We got 2 questions.
So,
name the first 2 albums and tell me about the music.
So the first album itself was pretty mainstream, had nice vocals, nice guitar, nice keyboard. Second, as the Fluffy Metric said, was kind of a bomb.
And the third album was the subject of this concert, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and how did the third album differ from the first 2 albums?
Well, the third album is called Bun Hop Revolution.
Objection, Your Honor. How did it differ? He's not a music critic, he's a security guard.
Not a music critic, but so far he's been stating facts. If you go off
Got it.
facts.
How was his third album as a statement of opinion?
Oh, how was?
What's the answer going to be? How was his third album wrapped in plastic about this big?
Your Honor, you know you can find him in contempt.
Plastic if it's on iTunes.
What the fuck? Please make this relevant right now.
What did you think of that third album?
My personal opinion, that's
Your
not
Honor,
the opinion.
his personal opinion is not relevant.
Just stay.
What were you listened to the third album?
I did.
You listened to all 3 albums?
Yes.
Okay. What was the music like in the third album?
Your Honor, once again, we object.
Sustained.
Your Honor, that's not calling for opinion, it's calling for the things
What
that
was
he's
the
actually
music
listened
like?
to.
Like
I
Harry
am
and some
asking
pop.
my witness to talk about the things that he heard. Please do not use your opinion when you state these facts. What did the music sound like?
The music contained sounds such as there were samples of street sounds, gunfire, and sirens.
Okay. Was there samples of street sounds in the previous two albums?
There were not.
Thank you. Again, no, not really.
I'll know if I did bad if Boozy punches me right after the battle.
And then I'll know that I did really good. Okay, so to prepare for security, you reviewed the music.
Yes.
And you also contacted other previous conventions that he had played at. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is that normal?
Standard, yes.
Okay. Did you take notes?
Yes.
All right. What was the security reaction to this album? What were you told by...
Well, at the previous...
Objection, Your Honor, this calls for hearsay.
Your Honor, it is for the effect on the listener.
Overruled.
Your Honor, the effect on the listener, he can say how he reacted or felt without giving the exact words. If they are planning to introduce those words to show anything other than I was concerned, which he can state without doing it, it's hearsay.
Your Honor, I have absolutely no concern whatsoever with the specific words that my witness was told.
In that case, your witness doesn't need to repeat them if you have no concern about it.
Okay.
So are you saying asked and answered? I knew a law term, motherfucker! Did I use that law term right?
No, he didn't.
No, not even remotely.
As a result of these conversations you had, and as a result of the review of the music that you had, what were your concerns about the security at this concert, the one that is at issue?
My concerns were specifically with Beat Your Meat, Riot 2, and Fire It Up.
What were your concerns?
Well, the other venues specifically stated that there was an intense
Objection,
crowd.
Your Honor, once again, we just said hearsay.
Overruled.
Your Honor.
Without... Your Honor,
His opinion.
I withdraw the
I
question.
heard his opinion. His opinion.
Without what was said to you by the other venues.
It was sent to you.
What were your concerns with these three songs?
That there'd be an intense crowd reaction.
What do you mean when you say an intense crowd reaction?
Rushing to the stage.
This is the hardest fucking panel ever. Just letting you know.
And yet you agreed to it.
I was drunk. And still am.
When are you not?
If you would give me more booze, I'd be more drunk. It would get weirder.
Somebody get him some alcohol.
What is the normal security ratio? How many security guards do you have in a normal concert, not this concert, to each patron of that concert?
For a normal concert, we normally have for every 150 fans a single guard.
Okay. For this concert, how many people did, what was the ratio for this concert?
For every 40 fans, we had a single guard.
Where were you located during the concert?
I was located on the stage.
Were you on the same stage as Mr. Urbanski?
Yes.
Were you in front of Mr. Urbanski?
I was behind him.
You were behind Mr. Urbanski. How far into that crowd could you see?
I could see all of the festival seating in the first couple rows of the non-festival seating.
You could see it fine?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What happened during that 15th song, Beat Your Meat?
Well, Beat Your Meat, people started to rush towards the festival stage. Not a lot, just a couple started to sneak in.
When did they start to rush towards the festival stage?
As soon as the sample from Fire It Up played.
Were you told before the concert that a sample from Fire It Up would be played during that song?
We were not. This is not part of the album version of Beat Your Meat.
So that's the 15th song. The 16th song is what?
Riot 2.
What happened during Riot 2?
Crowd just got more amped up.
I'm sorry, let me back up a second. When the crowd started rushing the stage, when Mr. Urbanski was singing that chorus, by the way, what are the lyrics in that chorus?
The lyrics themselves are rush to your stage, loose all your rage.
And that's when people started rushing the stage?
Yes.
And what happened to the people when they started rushing the stage during the 15th song, Beat Your Meat?
During the 15th song, a couple people snuck through our security ring, but not too many.
Okay. What was the 16th song again?
Riot 2.
Okay. And what happened during Riot 2?
Crowd just got more amped up.
Was there any samples from Fire It Up during Riot 2?
Not in Riot 2.
Okay. And after Riot 2 came what?
Fire It Up itself.
Tell me what happened during Fire It Up.
The crowd just screamed. They went crazy.
What happened when Mr. Urbanski sang the chorus to Riot Up the first time?
Well, the first chorus...
Your Honor, if he's going to continue leading the witness, can we at least put a leash on him?
Your Honor, my significant other isn't on the stage, so I feel like I shouldn't be the one leashing him.
Overruled. Leash the shit out of him.
Your Honor, I object to that in that my significant other is in the audience and she is glaring at me right now.
I think it'll be hysterical watching the aftermath.
Sorry.
That sounds like a personal issue.
Didn't know this was a panel on voyeurism.
You didn't? You didn't give me email?
What, if anything, Boozy, happened during the first chorus to Fire It Up?
It was kind of a repeat of during the chorus of Beat Your Meat, the same kind of Fire It Up chorus, but just more intense, more increased, more rushing to the stage.
How many choruses are in Fire It Up?
There are 3.
What happened during the second chorus?
During the second chorus, just more and more started to rush. It got even crazier during the second one.
Mr. Sai, what happened during the third chorus?
All hell broke loose. It was like Metric was describing. Everyone was just getting forced into the festival seating, much more than the 750 capacity. Based on our approximates after the fact, about 100 to 150 fans extra made it through into that seating.
And again, what are the lyrics to the chorus to Fire It Up?
Fight to your stage, let loose all your rage.
And you could see all this from the stage?
Yes, I could.
What happened after the song was over?
It's like the spell on the crowd had been dispelled, that people just went back to a normal crowd environment. We made a couple of arrests for the more rowdy people, but...
And what happened when Mr. Urbanski finished his set for the night?
When he finished the set, we learned that there had been multiple audience members rendered unconscious.
Do you know how many audience members?
7 aside from Cameron Coyote.
And what happened to those 7 people aside from Mr. Coyote?
They were just fine. They got better.
And what happened to Mr. Coyote?
He was announced brain dead.
Was there supposed to be an encore for the second set?
There was, yes.
And was the encore performed?
It was not.
Why not?
We canceled the show. We approached Ronnie with the facts about Cameron Coyote, and he agreed to end the show early.
Are there industry standards for festival seating?
Yes, there are, with the National Fire Association.
And did you follow those guidelines when you were setting up the festival seating?
We did, to the T.
All right, Mr. Sai, I have one more question for you. You have before you your statement. Is this the statement you wrote?
It's a statement somebody typed up for me.
And is there a typo in that statement?
There certainly is.
And what is that typo?
It says that many individuals climbed onto the stage.
And where did, during the chorus to Fire It Up, the people who broke through your security barrier, where did they actually go?
They went into the festival seating and just crowded into it.
All right, thank you. No more questions, Your Honor.
copy of your statement. You have reviewed it. You identified a typo, correct?
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, is your statement correct?
Yeah, I do believe.
Okay. So let's turn down to the third page, second paragraph on your statement. You've stated today that you were familiar with Mr. Urbanski's music, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were familiar with the lyrics to his song Fire It Up, correct?
Yes, sir.
That you did intensive study of those lyrics, the set list, and his music, correct?
I made flashcards.
Okay. When you gave this statement, do you see the portion right here, beginning third sentence of that during the third chorus? You see that?
Not really.
Would you like me to point it out to you?
That'd be great.
Wonderful. I'm going to show you, this is your statement. Do you see that underlined portion right there?
Yes, I do.
Would you mind reading that out, beginning with the word during, ending with the word scream right there?
You took it away.
Yeah, you've got your own copy, don't you?
Your Honor, I object.
I don't know why. This is funny.
I need a moment, Your Honor. I object to badgering the witness.
Your Honor, I'm simply asking the witness to read his own statement that not only was sworn, but was just verified under oath to this court.
And he's also a badger.
Just because he's a badger doesn't mean he's badgering. He's also pandering. You should have went with the other word.
Beginning with the word during that we pointed out, ending the two sentences later on the word scream. Would you mind reading that for us?
During the third chorus, Ronnie went out a long yell to fight to your stage. Ronnie then directed the crowd to rush forward to your stage and feel the scream.
Rush forward to this stage and feel the scream, and that came after the third chorus, correct?
It did, yes.
I'm going
Objection,
to show.
Your Honor, that is not what that says.
Your Honor, it states right there, and the witness can read it back. During the third chorus, Ronnie let out a long yell to fight to your stage. Then Ronnie directed the crowd to rush forward to your stage and feel the scream. If counsel has a problem with temporal realities, counsel should take it up with a physics professor, not me.
Your Honor, badgering the other lawyers. 1, 2, I understand temporal reality perfectly fine, and then does not mean after the chorus, then means obviously after Ronnie said whatever the previous lyric was.
Your Honor, it's not. Then Ronnie directed the crowd to rush forward to your stage and feel the scream. Let me show you this. During the third chorus, and then he directed them to do that, correct? I'm going to show you the lyrics to Fire It Up.
I need to see where this goes, because I'm confused.
Your Honor, he's obligated to show me before he shows my witness.
Come on over here and take a look. Nobody's showing.
How long in jail do I do for contempt if I sock the other lawyer?
For like 5 minutes. Oh yeah, it's like really hard 5 minutes. Really hard. Oh my. Thank you. But seriously, does anyone have any booze out there? I'm running low on tequila.
Where's that safe?
Where's Merrick? Is she happy?
Never.
Thank you, ma'am.
Your Honor, I renew my objection. My witness has testified to what he heard, not a piece of paper that was handed to him.
Your witness is subject to being cross-examined and have his statements hold up to the truth and veracity of this court, whether you like it or not, counsel.
And that was on YouTube, overruled. Thank you, YouTube. You were probably right. I like you a lot. I'm so sorry. Are you going to stab him with a pen?
Yes. Let's share a microphone, shall we?
Okay.
How many choruses are there in the song Fire It Up?
There are 3 choruses.
After the third chorus, how many lyrics are there?
It stops at the third chorus.
Oh, so that's the end of the song.
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, again, I object.
Now,
this is a piece of paper. This is not the version that was sung at the concert.
Unless
There's no
he
proof
had-
that
unless-
Ronnie
unless
sung
he
this
had-
version.
A, the burden's not ours, counselor. B, we have these lyrics and your client can testify. Now, if you want to testify for him, I'd suggest you be sworn.
Your Honor, I have nothing else to do today. I'm happy to do that.
The moment this panel is over, I get to smoke weed. Overruled. Keep going.
Mr. Sy, you testified both in your statement and a moment ago on reading it that Ronnie, after that course, directed the crowd to rush forward to the stage and feel the scream, correct?
Yes,
Do you see any lyrics in this song that sound like that?
I do.
Where do they appear?
Before the third chorus.
How far before?
Verse before?
2 verses before, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So are the lyrics wrong or are you wrong?
There's no right answer to that make me look good.
I would say there's a right answer. Is it all about looking good to you, Mr. Sy?
What was that?
Is it all about looking good to you, Mr. Sy?
What was that?
Is it only about looking good to you, Mr. Sy?
I mean, I already do look good.
Your Honor, object that.
No.
Sorry, argumentative.
Better not object to that.
Sustained. Cut that shit out. Either hit on him or shit on the pot. I think that's...
Mr. Sy, earlier you stated that you worked for Mr. Urbanski in 2017?
His company, yes.
His company?
Yes.
Mr. Sy, in your sworn statement on the first page, you said you worked for a group called the Big and Buzzies.
Yeah.
Mr. Urbanski doesn't own the Big and Buzzies, Mr. Sy. Mr. Urbanski's company is called Boobs and Bees. Is that not correct?
No, you're right.
So you don't remember who your boss was?
It sounds like you're my boss.
That's not actually objectionable.
Now, you stated that you contacted prior venues, correct?
Yes.
Let me ask, to the best of your knowledge, did any of those venues have deaths occur?
Not that I know of.
Did any of them have hospitalizations occur?
Not that I know of.
And you did, right?
We did, yes.
Okay. And that was with a 40-to-1 security guard average?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right? So how could these venues, in your vast experience, prevent deaths and injuries on their watch while you couldn't prevent them on yours? It's the same song.
It was the beat it up, the beat your meat was different.
Are you certain?
I mean, they didn't mention anything different from the album version.
Well, does that mean that it didn't happen there?
Objection calls for speculation. Thank you, counsel.
I can't know things I don't know.
You can't know that. And that's actually very, very good. You can't know things you don't know. So let me ask, are you a psychologist?
Nope.
Objection,
Do you have any experience whatsoever in crowd psychology?
Crowd psychology, no.
Okay.
Crowd management, yes.
One question. Is that a real thing?
Your Honor, if you have no knowledge of crowd psychology, how can you know what inciting moment there was for the crowd?
Oh, that makes sense now.
He's still supposed to stop talking until you rule in the objection.
He did. He gave me one. He gave me one question.
I gave you one too. I'm drunk and wearing a wig. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Again, still not the worst. Or the drunkest.
At least I'm not masturbating.
Mr. Sy, you were in charge of security, correct?
Yes, sir.
The safety of everyone in that arena was in your hands, correct?
In my paws, yes.
And even after speaking to other venues and arranging security, one of your concert attendees evaded your security and died on your watch, correct?
Yes.
How is that my client's fault?
Objection calls for a legal...
Withdrawn, nothing further.
Your Honor, I asked the last 5 minutes be struck because it came perilously close to violating one of our stipulations.
Legitimately sustained.
That means you can't pay attention to the last 5 minutes of everything he said.
I'm allowed to respond.
You are absolutely allowed to respond. The questions leading up to did you murder people will be stricken from
Your Honor, I have a couple of questions for redirect.
As a judge,
I'm still waiting to find out which stipulation, Your Honor.
The stipulation we can't talk about because the jury can't know about it, you asshole.
I don't recall any such stipulation.
What are the stipulations?
I don't know where they are.
I like it when they just argue amongst themselves. Sidebar, come over here. We need a microphone for the sidebar. Give me the microphone.
We are having a sidebar because you guys are not supposed to know about the thing that we're now going to tell you.
This is a sidebar. You're totally going to know about the thing they're not going to tell you. Go ahead.
Stipulations based solely on the arena's private settlement.
Oh, it's based off of that thing.
Your Honor, my question has nothing to do with settlement. That does not go to liability. Whether the arena has admitted or denied liability to coyote families is of no consequence as to whether or not the arena is really liable. We would have asked again that you overrule your objection and allow the testimony to stand.
And what is co-counsel doing?
I don't know. They might be hitting on each other.
This sage is a very capable lawyer. This is clearly trying to use a settlement to evade direct testimony. Whether the arena's accepted liability or not, and whatever the terms of their agreement are, we have not mentioned that to the jury. And they...
That's right, law is blind.
We're completely allowed to shift the blame to them. We're not allowed to mention their settlement in doing so. The division of liability in this Commonwealth is a valid defense.
I have a feeling you saw the same YouTube video I did. What do you got?
I don't work in this jurisdiction. His questions require a response, and a response I cannot give because of that stipulation. He is shifting the blame over to my client with the full knowledge that there is nothing that can be asked because of a stipulation. No.
Your Honor.
Your Honor. Your Honor, they are more than capable of responding without it and not admitting fault. The fact that the arena saw fit to pay off the coyote family does not mean my client has to take sole liability. This is a valid defense, and if we foreclose it, Your Honor, I'm going to ask you to recuse yourself.
So what I watched gives me about 1/10 of the knowledge I need for this. However, I think he saw the same YouTube video. I got to rule in the line of the defense. Defense, you are still okay. There's a word for that.
Our testimony's good. You can acknowledge it again.
You can totally nod now.
You do have to forget everything we said right there.
Yeah, so I recuse my testimony and I continue to drink.
Our sidebar was better, right?
I'm going to need you to sidebar me with me later to tell you what the fuck you just did.
He cheated. Mr. Sy, you listened to the music on Mr. Urbanski's third album?
I did, yes.
And you heard the lyrics to Beat Your Meat?
Unfortunately.
And were the lyrics that Mr. Urbanski sang at the concert the same as the lyrics on the album?
They were not.
So when you testified up here and you told this jury what you heard, that's based on what you heard at the concert, not the liner notes to the album?
Yes.
No more questions.
Your Honor, if I may, just a very, very brief recross. I'll do it from seated, Mr. Sy. Just to be clear, Beat Your Meat, right? That's the one that you listened to and you knew, right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Okay. The death happened during Fire It Up, though, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing further.
No redirect, Your Honor. The witness is thankfully sent home now.
Can I hug my boyfriend before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Guys, give me a round of I'm confused. It's okay, I'm wearing a wig. I'm allowed to be confused. Please call the next witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiff rest.
Like you're going to bed?
I need midnight, Your Honor, and I'm a very old man.
All right.
Defense, your turn.
We'll be pretty quick.
Would you like to call Ronnie?
Your Honor, the defense would like to call our client, Mr. Ronnie Urbanski,
Right Round Ronnie. I've been looking forward to this. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Right Round Ronnie, a.k.a. Chris
What up?
Ronnie, I know you, but can you please state your name for the record?
I'm Ronnie Urbanski, also known as Right Round Rodney.
And how old are you, Ron?
I'm 30 years old.
And what do you do for a living?
I am a professional rap artist and music producer.
And what is your connection to this case?
Well, it's about me, and it's about my music, and it's about the potential litigations applied to me, when in fact it has nothing to do with me.
Objection. Stating the legal conclusion.
Sustained. Cut it the shit out. Ronnie.
Ronnie, taking a step back, where did you grow up?
I grew up right here in Pittsburgh.
What was your childhood like?
A special cocktail of violence, drugs, and all sorts of weird shit.
What is your education level?
Well, I got a bachelor's in 3 years at Pittsburgh undergrad in music development, or music theory and production. I know my words.
And so...
Your Honor, can the witness be redirected to say it in the microphone? I didn't quite catch it.
I know my words.
Thank you.
You didn't need it and you didn't want it. Continue.
Would you describe yourself as a hard worker?
Yeah.
No elaboration?
Hell yeah. I was once very poor, and now I am very rich. And that is proof enough.
Well, tell me about your career. How did you get your start in music?
Well, I knew music is what I wanted to do, but I knew it was nearly impossible to actually get into the music business. So I struggled and strived, and I got my degree in 3 years. And in that time, I met a professor. That professor gave me a number to one known as Throw Rug? Yeah, Throw Rug. And Throw Rug was an alright person. And he was starting up a label. So he put me on it. So he put me to work doing whatever. And the important thing was I wasn't doing what I loved, but I was still in the music industry. And so I struggled, and I fought, and I did what I needed to do. But he was paying me minimum wage, something I couldn't live on. And eventually, I broke away and started my own company.
Objection, Your Honor. When is this going to get to be relevant?
He is a struggling artist, motherfucker.
Your Honor, I would point out that he just said he is super rich.
Now.
Sustained, rich fucker.
Your Honor, I have to be given a chance to respond to the objection.
I'm sorry. Objection sustained, overruled, respond. I don't know what's happening. I've been drinking for 4 hours.
Your Honor, it's relevant because the lyrics of the song are being alleged to have incited the riot. The justification and the history and the career behind those lyrics is relevant to this case.
My art is on question, and art comes from what life is.
I hate you more than life itself. Continue.
Your Honor, I asked that be stricken because I didn't understand it.
Stricken, artist. You're barely starving and we can tell.
Whoa! Judge got jokes!
That means you can make fat jokes.
I don't get paid enough for this shit.
I can't hear you, but I heard steak.
Do you want steak?
Yes.
We can arrange something.
Winner.
Your Honor, I object. The bribery should be much more subtle than that.
Continue.
So, Ronnie, you eventually ended up leaving Miss Rugg's record label?
That's correct.
And did that involve any litigation?
A little bit of litigation. There were some small claims about who owned what in the process, and I had to take care of that litigation, as well as found my company, as well as do a bunch of side jobs to make ends meet, as well as produce the second album that everyone seems to think is a piece of shit.
No objection, Your Honor.
I actually agree, Your Honor.
During that litigation, did you seek any further education?
I did.
What degree did you achieve?
Let me check.
Sorry, notepad for the pros.
Oh, I went and got an actual business degree so that I could run run boobs and bees properly.
And would that business degree be described as an MBA?
Yeah. That's exactly what
So
I
in
said.
addition to your rap career and your higher education, you're a business owner?
I have 2 degrees, yes.
And so, in your opinion, why did your second album do, I'm sorry, it's late.
You mean
bad numbers?
Why
Your
was the
album,
cube-
second
why-
album lower, first album, second down here, why?
Why was your second album shit?
Yo, listen, Judge.
Yo.
How about you try working about 5 different jobs and getting 2 different degrees, and then also trying to write about something that you don't know what the hell you're trying to write about? There was a lot.
Judge, I have no idea what you're going through.
There was a lot of different things going on, and so yeah, I do agree. My second album was lackluster, by far the least impressive of my 3. I will agree to that. But the fact of the matter, it was because I was hustling in every direction trying to make my dream come true, and I don't see why that's a problem.
Well, what did you do to correct course on that?
Well, I realized that it was not my best work, so I sat down, I buckled down, and I kicked out my 3rd album. I made sure it was my magnum opus. I went right back to what I knew. The streets of Pittsburgh. The dirty, gross, weird place that I live. I've seen some weird shit.
Would you describe your 3rd album as gangsta rap?
Not at all. I think gangster rap, as I said in my statement, is a gimmick played for capitalistic gains. I think that gangster rap is an overabundance of violence for violence sake with just a sprinkle of misogyny in there, and it's wrong.
So when you were touring with your 3rd album, what was your regular practice? What did you do after each concert?
I would sit down with my entire crew, AV, backup dancers, singers, and everybody. Security included, I believe. Yeah, I said that. All right. And we would talk about it. We would talk about what went wrong, what went right, and how we could improve upon it. I'm a perfectionist.
So how long did it take for you to lock down the set list that you used in your tour?
I'd say about 4 months. Is that accurate to mine? I got this like a week ago.
Not even 4 months. Was it only 4 shows?
Oh, no. Far more.
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
I was, because he didn't remember.
No,
Yeah,
Mark,
fair
read
enough.
your fucking script.
I'm doing it.
I'm doing it.
I'm doing it.
I fucking love you.
On the day of the concert in question, did you see a lot of security?
I did.
How did the concert go, in your estimation?
Well, it wasn't going great at first. Lackluster, I'd say. But by the second half, it was bumping.
Did you see anything that concerned you out in the crowd?
I mean, I won't deny I had a lot of friends there, back in my hometown, all sorts of crazy things. So there was an electricity to the whole thing, but it just meant that it was a good show.
Did you see any pushing?
A little here and there, but I mean, that's what it's going to be when you're in a mosh pit.
And after the concert was over, did you want to go back out for an encore?
I did. Well, I did until I was informed about what was happening, and then I agreed to cancel the encore.
What was your understanding of what happened during the concert?
I was told about 100 or so fans broke into a different section, and that there were injuries involved.
Did anyone mention any casualties beyond just injuries?
Not at all.
When did you find out about the death of the decedent in this case?
Or the following morning.
So you didn't find out about it until the morning after?
Yeah.
How to beat your Miko?
What was that? Hang on. What was that again?
How to beat your Miko?
It was alright. Sorry, I wanted to do that. Beat Your Meat went really well. And I decided, and it had an energy to the room, and people were really feeling it. So I got really into the song myself, and we kept going with it.
To your understanding, whose responsibility was it to do crowd control?
Well, to my understanding, as it has been in prior venues and prior concerts, it is the DLCC's job to keep everyone safe, and it is my job as an entertainer to entertain.
And you're a small business owner yourself, correct?
Correct.
So you are involved in the business of running your album, your concerts, your events, correct?
That is very correct.
Has anyone at your shows? Oh, I'm sorry. I want to show you. I want to show the witness. If I may approach the witness, I want to show them Exhibit 3, which is the lyrics to "Fire It Up." Your Honor.
You better fucking know his lyrics.
Oh yeah. I was actually not giving my lyrics.
And Ronnie, does Exhibit 3 show the lyrics to the song "Fire It Up"?
Yeah, it does.
Ronnie, I'm going to interrupt for a moment. You have the lyrics to Fire It Up in front of you?
I do.
All the lyrics?
Some of them.
Can we hear the first verse? Ask who would perform it, please.
Your Honor, I object.
You can object as much as you want. I want a rap battle.
Your Honor, isn't it traditional to have another,
Well, no, I'm battling the court.
Are you fucking with me with tradition? Grandma Kage is walking away because of tradition.
I concede that point.
I bear witness to the unfitness of the status quo. All I know is that I've been told to show. Well, I'll show. With a thrift commit as I slice through the throat to the belly of the beast. I can't cease. I'll release. Rest, test, rest in peace.
Holy
I'm outstanding. I knew he was that good all along.
Ronnie, so much has been made of the line in the chorus regarding to charge the stage. Can you please read to us the full chorus to "Fire It Up"? And you can rap it if you like.
Fire it up, burn the place down, tear it all down, the walls to the ground. Guardians be damned. Fight to your stage, my child, let loose all of that rage. Fire it up, burn the town down. All will rise up from the burnt ground.
Ronnie, did anyone set fire to the concert venue the night of this concert?
No, they did not.
Did anyone tear down the walls of the concert venue?
Objection, Your Honor. That's speculation.
To your knowledge?
No. No, they did not.
Overruled. Continue.
No more questions.
Really quick. Do you think that like they set him on fire and he's like, no, the heat's on?
They were at
He
Terminal
didn't say
1.
how hot it was there, Your Honor.
Oh, shit.
Mr. Avansky.
I was
Yes.
probably wrong.
Can I get an autograph?
Yeah.
You're signing confession, idiot!
Please let the record reflect that page is blank. I'm actually a huge fan. I love this song.
There you are.
Sweet, thanks.
Always love to meet a fan.
Mr. Avansky, on direct testimony, you said, I believe, that you don't like gangster rap because it's for capitalist gain. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And yet you're really rich.
That is true.
When you sang at that concert, Beat Your Meat, did you sing the lyrics that were on your album?
Well, no. That's the beauty of a concert. It's a little different each time. That's why you go. Otherwise, you just listen to the album at home.
I actually agree with that. Mr. Avansky, did you tell security you were changing the lyrics to the album?
No, because I'm an artist and I feel what I feel on stage.
And what were you feeling on stage when you sang Beat Your Meat?
I was feeling the energy of the crowd. I was feeling my meat in my hands.
I asked that to be stricken as too much information, Your Honor.
Fair enough.
Overruled! This is now porn!
Unfortunately, we have to ask all members of the jury under the age of 18 to now leave the room. The judge has spoken.
You know they're not going to.
I do know that. It's all about liability, Your Honor. Mr. Vansky, what was the energy of the crowd during Beat Your Meat?
Electrifying, powerful, palpable.
And what was the energy of the crowd during Riot 2?
Double that.
And what was the energy of the crowd during Fire It Up?
Triple that.
Your Honor, no more questions.
No more questions, but I'm literally jealous of how good you apparently are on stage. Triple? Fuck you.
What can I say? I'm an artist.
Say again? Short redirect, Your Honor. Approved. Or the word that I should actually use.
That's plenty.
Yes.
Is this me?
Whoever's having a heart attack, if you could just go to the hospital.
But it's a good panel.
Yeah, I understand.
Whoever that is, you need a lawyer.
I'll take the case.
Not the worst lawyer I've ever faced.
So, Ronnie, since the order of the songs has come up on Cross, I want to ask you some questions about that. Your Honor, if I may approach the witness, I'd like to show him Exhibit 4, which is the playlist from that night.
Approved. Oh, sorry.
Man, I got so much paper.
I have to hit things.
Ronnie, as we discussed before, you believe that you perfected the order that you did the songs in by the fourth concert, or after the fourth concert.
That's about right, yeah.
Okay. So numbers 15 through 17 there are, on that list, are Beat Your Meat, Riot 2, and Fire It Up in that order.
Correct.
And that's the order you believe that they worked the best in? Is that true?
Yes. Every other venue I had played, I found that this gave the best energy to the event. And like with any good concert, you want to build to a big crescendo at the end. That's what I did.
So, and you consider yourself, do you consider yourself to be an artist?
Very much so, yes.
Your Honor, leading.
Overruled.
You can lead on Razor X so long as it go.
Since when?
What
the hell is wrong with your seat?
Yeah,
that's not...
We allow you to lead on Razor X to a certain degree within the scope since you're just covering things you've already asked.
Your Honor, in that case, I withdraw my objection, but object to this whole goddamn state.
Oh, I'm so cool with that. Continue.
So you found that the first thing you wanted to do to get your message across was to beat your meat, right?
That's right.
Then you wanted to Riot 2, right?
That's right.
Then you wanted to Fire It Up, right?
Yep.
And if testimony had been given before that you were given suggestions on changes to be made to your set list, would that be accurate?
Repeat that real quick.
That was a poorly phrased question. Let me strike that and rephrase. If there was testimony suggesting that you were told to change your set list and you did so, would that be accurate?
Yes. No? No. No. Nailed it.
Because you're an artist, right?
That's right.
You had the perfect set list, right?
That's right. I would never sacrifice my artistic integrity. Yeah, okay, that makes sense character-wise. I would never sacrifice my artistic integrity for some kind of...
Your Honor, I object. Who's testifying here?
I don't fucking know! Overruled and sustained at the same time. Makes sense.
So some dumpy security guy who's really not that cute told you to change your set list. I'm kidding.
Overall sustained, the current court will result in a Jello wrestling competition. You know the worst part is Kage specifically told me I'm not allowed to include a Jello wrestling competition. It was a very awkward email. Continue.
The point that you are making is that you wouldn't change your set list, right?
No, I would never.
Thank you. No more questions. And I'm sorry, I didn't really mean to insult anyone. You were a lovely witness, thank you.
Vince?
We're the plaintiff, Your Honor, and Wait, I don't remember what we're on. I'm done.
Guys, huge round of applause for Chris the Comedy Bunny!
Call Mr. Danny Dragon.
Danny Dragon?
Dragging these balls up to the podium.
Your Honor, briefly. Your Honor, briefly, based on the appearance of this witness, the plaintiff requests that we withdraw our stipulation that he's an expert in anything because he clearly cannot dress himself.
Or hold on to papers.
Overruled on the stipulation, you've never had the pleasure of undressing him. Hi, Danny Dragon.
Could you state your name for the record, please? Although it seems the judge is already pretty familiar with you.
Familiarity aside, Danny Damn It's Hot Dragon.
Mr. Dragon, what is your current occupation?
I am the president and CEO of Crowd Safety 9 Plans, or CSP.
What does Crowd Safety 9 Plans do?
It presents and presides security regulations for event management and also can provide security for things as well.
Now, the parties have previously stipulated that you are an expert in the field of crowd safety control.
I am.
Could you just give us a little bit of your credentials here?
Your Honor, objection to relevance since we've already stipulated to his expertise.
Your Honor, it's certainly relevant since the jury will be asked to assess his credibility in making determinations of fact in this matter.
Danny, please list the reasons why we should accept you, or other words that are more legal.
I have a doctorate in public security from Mansfield, my master's in event planning and engineering from Bucknell, and I have a BA in criminal justice from Slippery Rock, but clearly no speech therapy.
Have you written any papers, anything of that nature?
Yes, I have also, I have presented dozens of seminars on concert safety. Literally dozens.
How long have you been in this field?
Years.
You ever heard of first state?
Objection, Your Honor.
Heard of what?
Years is not.
You ever heard of
What is
first
that?
state?
Witness, please expound upon years.
Double digits. At least 10. If we go with I have been deposed twice a year, of which I have and provided my expertise on, then we'll go with 15 years.
Your Honor, is the witness now an expert in math?
Apparently fucking not. However, that is not the question at stake.
Wait, no, I had 30. Divided by 2 is 15. 15 years. What was the question? Hi.
Mr. Dragon, moving along.
Thank you.
We'll be here till 3 a.m.
Let's
arguing
not.
over how many years you've been doing this. Are you familiar with the National Fire Association guidelines?
Unfortunately.
And you have been present today in the courtroom while Mr. Dorian Sy testified?
I was.
And did you hear when he stated that the National Fire Association guidelines were applied?
I did.
As an expert, what documentation did you review in this matter?
Let me consort my brain here. In particular, I reviewed, had dozens of interviews with eyewitnesses, arena and security personnel, and I also got to see any audio and visual data from the event in question.
And from that documentation, did you form any opinions regarding the events at issue?
I did.
What is that opinion?
My opinion was that the safety regulations that they adhered to were flawed at a foundational level.
And when you say the safety regulations they adhered to, what regulations are you referring to?
In particular, the National Fire Association provided guidelines that happen to be deficient. Their guidelines allow a particular square footage that more experienced folk tend to say is still unsafe.
Objection, Your Honor. More experienced folk? Is he talking about his experience, or is he just making
In
a
my own opinion, I will rephrase. I apologize. I deem them to be.
I accept your apology.
Hey,
we're
good
doing
something.
I don't think our judge likes us getting along. Let's keep doing it.
Hey, fuck now.
Mr. Dragon.
Yes.
What was the suggested square footage by the guidelines relied on based on your review?
Based on review and what was repeated earlier today, they went with 4 to 5 square feet of space per person.
In your expert opinion, is that a sufficient amount of space?
That is not.
And how would you reach that determination?
In particular, there are different levels of person density, or shall we say a meat ocean. And at higher densities, if you put too many people together, that meat ocean turns into a meat wave with crushing capacity. Would you like to go into math specifics? I do have some of those.
Certainly.
So, to start with, if you have 20 square feet, then you can breathe, unlike in here. And at 10 square feet, that's easy to say, excuse me, and get by. Once you get down to where I have my notes, at 5 square feet, a person can stand without touching others, but cannot move freely. And then the next threshold at 3 is people cannot avoid touching each other. This is a threshold that should never be reached because it tends to induce anxious and panic in your crowds.
Now, they followed the National Fire Association standards, and to recap, it is your belief that those standards are deficient, correct?
Correct.
That's not leading. I'm restating his prior testimony, Your Honor.
Overruled, I think. I don't know!
Were there any other guideline options available?
The biggest guideline that I suggest is to eliminate festival seating on the grounds of it's also a misnomer.
Okay. Are there any other published guidelines outside of that?
I have my own published guideline called the Suggested Concert Crowd Safety Guidelines, and I do have a copyright.
Okay. And you wrote those guidelines?
I did.
Have those guidelines been adopted by any other municipality or area?
They have not, despite testifying in Congress in favor of them.
Okay. Under your guidelines, what is the suggested square footage for this sort of event for an individual?
For this sort of event in general, or an event with this type of individual in particular?
Well, what do you mean by that?
In general, the reason 5 feet is suggested is, for the most part, that will be fine. However, in light of what is commonly called the Elvis effect, one of the things that is called a triggering point for that surge can happen. They went below that limit, and a surge happened.
What is the Elvis effect?
The Elvis effect is when... what? Are you saying you can smell me from there?
Yeah, what is the Elvis effect?
The He did not. The Elvis effect is when someone has sufficient charisma. They can incite a craze, and that their mere presence in the context of a limited space creates an artificial desire to be in the front more than a rational person would otherwise adhere to.
Okay, and in this specific case, what sort of capacity would you have suggested, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I would have suggested probably around 514 ticketed individuals.
In the festival seating, to be clear?
If that was the concession to be made that they were still going to do it, yes.
And in reviewing your information, do you know how many ticketed fans were admitted?
It was approximately, or exactly, I did not see the ticket stub number in these testimonies. 746 ticketed fans were admitted, with an estimation of 100 to 150 fans who also joined it.
Now, I'm a lawyer, not a mathematician, but isn't that almost 150 people, or almost 250 people more than the minimum or the maximum on your guidelines?
Yes.
In your expert opinion, were the measures taken by the DLCC And the big and buzzy's adequate.
In terms of personnel provided, yes.
And were they adequate enough to prevent this type of injury?
No.
Why is that?
That is because of the surge effect guided to, I mentioned previous.
Could this have been prevented?
With less people on the floor, so yes.
Nothing.
Do you want me to expand?
No.
Yay!
Counsel? Or defense? I don't know. Plaintiff? I forgot an entire word.
If it makes you feel better, Your Honor, you are the worst judge I've ever been in front of, but you are definitely one of my more favorite judges.
Oh, you're gonna win.
You guys have to follow what the judge says.
Sir, you said that you've written a book on the subject matter of crowd security.
I never said it was a book, but I do publish things.
So you publish something that individuals could purchase for, maintaining their own guidelines.
It is also available on my website.
And fair to say that if you were adopted as the industry standard, you would be subject to make a lot more money than you make now.
Speculative. I think I'm well-to-do.
And also, you're being paid for your testimony here today, correct?
No one's paid me yet.
But you bill for this testimony.
I don't know, do I?
Yes.
Yes. Fair to say you wouldn't probably be able to bill if you testified differently than the defense wanted you to, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. A, that's speculative. B, our contract is for the time that he is testifying only. If he's going to try to influence the jury, could they at least be a little less transparent?
Look, all I'm saying is that he's a mercenary.
The exact same fucking thing.
He kind of did. I got to sustain or overrule or whatever it means you can keep talking. Go ahead.
Okay, less handsome Wolf O'Donnell.
Whoa.
Love you too.
I was talking to him.
It's okay. I still love
There's
you.
no monitors on that stage. Please repeat.
I said, okay, less handsome Wolf O'Donnell. I was making the mercenary reference.
God damn it.
There we go. You say, as part of your preparation for this event, did you familiarize yourself with the work of one Right Round Ronnie?
I have.
And so you had testified in your statement that you would classify him as a quote-unquote gangsta rapper?
Yeah.
And you are aware, sir, that one of his albums is called Boop Snoot Riot, aren't you?
Yes.
And you are aware that one of his other albums is called The Bun Hop Revolution, aren't you, sir?
Yeah.
So you are obviously not an expert in what qualifies as good taste in music or gangster rap, are you?
I have my own taste. Piss off.
That didn't answer a question.
No one's making me. You talked a little bit about festival seating or festival programming at an event. Are you aware of a phenomenon where individuals will leave amphitheater seating to go down to festival seating?
Yes, people can get out of seats.
And so you were aware of the fact that even with your calculations, it is not only possible but fairly regular that that individuals will fill festival seating even if they aren't supposed to be there.
That can happen, yes.
And you know that if people fill that auditorium, the number of square footage, or the square footage per person will decrease as they fill, correct?
Yes.
And so over time, if people are able to go down into the amphitheater or into the festival seating, even if they had followed your guidelines to begin with, eventually that space is going to compress. Isn't that true?
Technically.
And you already told us that in your professional opinion, the venue had done everything it should have done with regards to the guards on scene and the security.
Manpower, yes.
No further questions.
I do have some regret.
That's the traditional post-examination hypothesis.
Mr. Dragon, are you a music critic?
What was that?
Are you a music critic?
A music critic?
Yes.
By hobby only.
By hobby only. What is your area of expertise?
My area of expertise is in crowd management and planning and safety.
Okay. Mr. Dragon, you stated you're being paid to be here today. Is your payment conditioned on you testifying in any certain manner?
In a certain manner, no. Well, wait, can I strike that? In a certain manner, yes, truthfully.
I like that. We'll go with it. Now, Mr. Dragon, you just admitted that it is possible people could leave the amphitheater seating and go into the floor seating, correct?
I was not made aware of restraints in the seats.
Okay. Mr. Dragon, when you reviewed the documentation here, how many people actually left the amphitheater seating and made it to floor seating in this situation?
It actually was... there was a... I'm having trouble reading my own thing.
I will direct you to the second page of your statement, the fourth paragraph.
750 was budgeted and 746 tickets were sold.
And how many additional fans got into the festival area during the concert?
100 to 150.
So, I'm not great at math, but how many at the time of the crush that killed Mr. Coyote were in that area?
That would be 846 to 896.
Under your guidelines, you would have limited festival seating to how many people?
514.
If another 100 to 150 people had gotten in under your guidelines, how many would have been in there at the end of the song, Fire It Up?
614 to 600 and math 64.
In your expert opinion, would that have been enough to cause a crush?
No.
Would that have been enough to cause a crush like the one that killed Mr. Coyote?
Absolutely not.
Nothing further.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Dragon! Don't take that shit!
You are out of here. Run, he's gonna chase you. I've never seen Outfly run.
I don't run.
Even for Outfall?
You're on the defense rest. Defense rests. Things happen. Continue.
At the close of both parties' cases, we present...
Closing of both, that's what I meant.
At the close of both parties' cases, the parties present closing arguments. And this is divided between the plaintiff, who goes first and then has a rebuttal, and the defense, who goes in the middle. I'm going to say something that's unusual for a plaintiff's attorney here. I'm going to ask you to take your emotion out of the equation. And that's odd to say when it's our client who died. But I'm going to ask you to take your emotion out of the question and go with one thing. One question. It's the question of control. Who was in control that evening? The security was doing everything it could. Their expert tells you that their security was doing everything it could. The kids, they were kids. They were out of control. They went down to the floor. They were following direction. They were doing what kids do. The crowd was moving like their expert said, like a wave, like waves on the water, not in control. The only one that night that was in control was that man, Right Round Ronnie. Right Round Ronnie was in control his entire life. He controlled his rise from rags to riches. When his second album bombed, he controlled the method by which he came back. He made his lyrics more violent. He sampled in street sounds. He sampled in gunfire. He controlled his rise. And that night, at the concert, in this godforsaken town, Right Round Ronnie was in control of the crowd. You've heard it from every single witness. Every single witness, plaintiff and defense. He spoke, the crowd responded. The energy went up 1 time, up 2 times, up 3 times the energy it had started with. And all of that was under the control of Right Round Ronnie, who controlled the audience's every action, who controlled the audience's every movement, who controlled the wave, who controlled the energy, who controlled the crush. That was Right Round Ronnie, and he said it himself. It did not matter what happened. Candy told you it was obvious the crowd was out of control. Our security man told you it was obvious that the crowd was out of control. Ronnie told you no matter what happened, he had perfected his set. He was an artist. He would not be dissuaded. He was in control, and he is responsible. A child is dead, and that man was in control. Find him liable for the death of Cameron Coyote.
Video games kill people. If you listen to death metal, you worship Satan. If you listen to rap music, you're going to sell drugs and commit murder. It is easy to blame all of our problems on art. But the fact is, no song ever killed anybody. Right Round Ronnie wrote music. He performed his music. He performed it in a venue that guaranteed the safety of each and every attendee of whatever age. A venue that had a security force that was to manage the situation. In the other venues where these songs were performed, there were no fatalities. There were no injuries. There were no hospitalizations. Only in this venue. Only here. Only were they allowed 750 people almost to stand in an area with 5 square feet of space, knowing damn well people would try to get into it. Their security man testified that people had tried to come into the festival areas during that song previously. He did not care. He went with the lowest possible guideline. He put more bodies in there. A force that couldn't stop 100 to 150 people, even at 40 to 1, from rushing that area. They knew there was another guideline out there. It's published. They didn't care. It's that simple. And now they're looking at an artist, a local artist, a young man who came up from poverty and despair and writes music and lyrics that speak to those, that says you can rise above, that speaks to the anger of the lower classes in this country, the ignored, the voiceless, and they're pointing the finger at him because they want a payday. It is a tragedy that a young man's life is gone. But who is more responsible for overpacking an area, providing insufficient security, ignoring guidelines, and ignoring warnings? The artist who seeks only to entertain, to inspire, and to raise others up? Or the arena that ignored the warnings and allowed the situation that led to Mr. Coyote's death? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you find from the evidence you've heard here today that the arena is more responsible, despite the testimony of their jumped up security guard, if you find in favor of the dedicated and experienced expert that the arena is more responsible, you cannot assign liability to Mr. Urbanski. It's simply not his fault because he wrote music that a young man died. It was the duty of the arena to keep him safe. Thank you.
He's from the South. That's just a way to say hello.
Boozy, your efforts to seduce me are working. The deaths didn't happen anywhere else. And that matters. Because at the end of the day, what I'm telling you is defined by a preponderance of evidence, which means more likely than not. It's a really fancy way to say more likely than not. That it's more likely than not that it wasn't his music, that it wasn't his inspiration, that it was his action that night, that one time, in this town, in his hometown, in the place where he is big as Elvis, the Elvis effect, that he was in control. And at the end of the day, it's more likely than not that if he had just settled down, if he had just compromised his artistic vision, if he had just given up a single measure of his control, Cameron Coyote would be alive tonight. And none of you would be here. And that's why I'm asking you to find him liable for Cameron Coyote's death.
It is time. Before we deliberate, I just want to give out a few thank yous, guys, before we do this. A huge thank you to a bunch of people who memorized the script. This wasn't improv, this wasn't performance. The people who came up to that stand got a script, they memorized it, they made it happen. To every single person who came up here, Dragger, to everyone else whose name I can't remember because they were just kind of sexy. Guys, give them a huge round of applause. Until they died. Next to the bailiff, QM, thank you for helping me and whispering to me, you're fucking everything up, and nodding softly. Guys, to the bailiff, QM! I could give a long, drawn-out speech, but I think he'd prefer this. To the guy who might have murdered somebody. Guys, give it up for Chris, the comedy player! Came up here and I pretended to be a judge, but the four people up here do this for a living. I was up here to make jokes. They were doing their job. I have never been more impressed. To all four people who came up here and showed you what the legal system is actually like, and I'm so sorry for the state of this country.
Kansas City? Yes. It's Kansas. It's the same goddamn. Flat and square, you're good. Bill Howard is a Pittsburgh local insurance defense attorney who has given up a good chunk of his Friday night after a long week of work to be here and help us do this. Let's have a wonderful hand.
same record of his own, but let's not forget, a gentleman who has helped the furry fandom in the past more than I can ever thank him for. Guys, a huge round of applause for Boozy Berry. Well, I was the judge, and I'm from Chicago. That means one thing: judges can be bribed. So we're still going to go around and figure out exactly who wins, but before that, we're going to need a donation for the extra votes. Guys, if you believe your defense has proven their case, money goes into that hat. If you believe the prosecution, what the fuck did you spill in front of your table?
No, man. Keep going.
After they came in front of their table, this is from the defense. We're still going to do a vote for a moment before this all ends, guys. This is a second-year panel at this convention. Every year, Anthrocon, MFF, ACE, every con you can think of, asks yourself, what can we do to better entertain our audience? This panel was created by the people you see up on stage, and this panel has become one of my favorite panels. Guys, if you enjoyed this, if you had a good time, please give to our charity. If you don't know who they are, this is a bird sanctuary with the most unique thing I have ever heard. A bird sanctuary gets many donations a month. And when those donations come in, they come in with the cage that that bird was originally purchased in. These birds do not fit in their cages. One of the first things that this charity is doing is making the cages properly fit the birds that were donated. On top of that, their medical fees are over 5 digits a month. If you can give, give. But if you're not noticing, we asked you at the end of the panel, if you had a good time, don't worry about it. We're furries. They don't know it yet. They're gonna be fucked. Guys, we're going to count out the donations in front of both the tables. Then we're going to take a vote. Take a few moments to give. Thank you so much. My name is Elpelai. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's make the shenanigans begin.
Where did they get
QM, I need your help.
We're going to start counting the votes.
What happened to the hat?
Our hat is so small. I'm sorry? Everybody! This hat cannot be made.
where are they located?
So is this guy one of us or is he just a poser?
So I have a weird question for all of you. Dragor's going to ask it in a moment. Be very honest, because if you're not, it's not not going to work. Dragger, what's your question?
Who in here believes that this should be in a bigger room next year? It just so happens that Ash, the director of programming, happened to walk by, saw the sea of meat, walked away, and when I saw him out there, he's like, before you say anything, it's in a bigger room. You guys are awesome. That is because of you showing up here. Thank you.
Last year was even better because Alkali showed up and told me, I have no idea what's going to happen. Boozy did his opening statement. Alkali just went slack to all of it. Holy shit! I mean, next one.
Just donate straight, or would you like to donate? What do you want to win the case? I got no beef, whatever. Do you think I killed some? Do you think I killed? You think I killed somebody? Yeah, give it to him. Yep, you're fine.
Yeah, you killed someone.
That's fine.
Just a few more moments, everyone.
You guys killed many people with his tentacle hands. What would you like to do? I need that. Because he is a Anthrocon.
Are you trying to donate to the defense? It's his fake. As we all know, you. This is the 1200s, and that's how we do
Not the first time.
Gentlemen, here we go. Here we go. Order in the court. Take your seats. All presiding, the drunk. That's it.
Hold on. We got one late vote.
Late vote. Who are you voting for? There we go. I don't think he killed him. That would be over here. It goes over here. All right, I have the currency vote, but what I don't have is the audience vote because once again, you are furries. If you gave, guys, thank you so much. It means the world to us. If you didn't give, we hope you enjoyed the show and it's time for your vote to count. I know what this audience is going to need right now to overturn the currency. Look, I'm from Chicago. You can bribe me. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. For the prosecution, who believes?
Plaintiff.
Thank you. For the plaintiff, I fucking don't know what I'm doing! For the plaintiff, who believes that this gentleman over here, whose name I was laughing at far too hard, what's your name?
Rodney.
RRR! Who thinks that railroad rectum? Who votes for guilty? Raise your hand. Liable. Raise your hand. Thank you. Over here. Who believes that rock and roll rapist?
We had a motion about it and everything.
I'm wearing a wig. I can't hear shit. Who believes that this gentleman is innocent? Raise your hand. Legitimately, unless that was reversed, there was no other way. Judge rules in your favor. Guys, thank you so much. close to raising $500 for charity.
How close?
We are within $60 of $500 for charity. Thank you guys so much.
Unacceptable. Get $20 first.
We are now $40 from $500 for charity. We are now $20. This is what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. We have a verdict, but more importantly,
The birds have cages. The birds have a couple of cages now.
the birds do. Ladies and gentlemen, the verdict is innocent, but more importantly, the verdict is you are still and always will be the greatest people on this planet. Guys, this is the Furry Jury! One more thank you to the plaintiffs, the defense, the prosecution, the people who came up here. Guys, we hope you enjoyed. Next year we're going to be in a bigger room. Thank you so much and good
Silver Gattoman, he bought me a coffee. Silver Gattoman, here is the song for thee. He likes to video all the panels at the cons. You should go and watch them whether they are short or long. Silver Gattoman, you video that's not a jibe. All of you go to his YouTube channel and like and subscribe.